Thanks for watching. We'll see you again on Inside OC. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So we can just chit chat here. Was there
Okay.
something that you wanted us to cover that we didn't get to?
You were talking about Asian Americans, but
Yeah.
it's really interesting because it's not just Orange County. I mean, it's not just state watching us, but actually Republican National Committee is watching us because we got like Lisa, me, Janet, Ling Ling, Young Kim, Andrew, you name them. That this is the biggest thing ever because not that many Asian Americans got elected, but in 2014,
we all
really
got swept
changed.
into office.
So they're
really.
watching it very closely.
Yeah, but there seems to be a lot of talk that everyone's saying how the Asians are moving away from the Republican Party and going to the Democratic Party. Is there some lesson for the party or in what's happened with you guys?
I think that for Michelle and myself, I think we look at it as we're Asian Americans, but in order to affect change in government, we have to be there elected in office. We have to be there at the table. And I think more Asian Americans are deciding to get involved in government to affect those positive changes. And I think it's a good thing.
So when you talk, and of course your husband, Sean Steele, is the former chairman of the Republican Party in California. What do you tell them when they say, "Hey, how do what's the secret? How are we going to get more ethnic voters to support us?" What do you tell them? What do you tell
what
them?
we've been telling them since 2012, the presidential election, that we can really change it because my husband and I did the PAC in Nevada. We raised about $55,000, and that year that Obama got 70%, over 70% of Asian American votes. But when Ronald Reagan ran, he got more than 70% of Asian American votes. So we decided to change that. So what we did was we raised the money and we targeted 4 different communities: Korean American, Chinese American, and Filipino and Vietnamese. So we sent out 2 mailers and we did the phone banking, and we got 47% of Asian American votes for Mitt Romney. I mean, he didn't make it, but we really wanted to show something. So Asian Americans, the fastest growing communities, and you know what? We can make the difference there. So we try to tell them that Asian Americans, the most important ones, number-wise, still Hispanics are the biggest numbers, but Asian Americans, that they are not really, about more than 60%, they are not Republicans or Democrats. They can be swayed, but we can work on it. That's what we are telling the presidential candidates.
They can be swayed, but it seems like the party's message nationally hasn't gotten out.
That's why
or it's been the wrong message.
Well, and then that's why we're tweaking the message to get more Asian Americans engaged in politics and wanting to run for local office and higher office as well. Because that way we have a seat at the table, we have a voice, and we can make changes.
On the show itself, we did not. I did not get to Donald Trump. Frankly, I've been talking so much about Donald Trump. I was kind of tapped out on it myself. But this is the open mic segment, so I've got to ask you. We are actually speaking on Election Day in California, but I'm sure that the Donald will remain a big topic throughout the election season. So, what impact, especially some of the things he has said that have really sounded anti-immigrant. They actually have been anti-illegal immigrants, certainly, but they seem to be anti-immigrant, rather crass in treatment of minorities, or for that matter, foreign countries like Japan and, you name it. What do you think? Does he make you cringe, or are you on the Trump train, Lisa? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that some of his messaging needs to get more into mainstream and basically resonate more with the voters. But I think the one thing that Donald Trump has done is he's galvanized millions of people across the country, people that are very upset about 8 years of failed policies of the Obama administration, and people want to change.
So when he says things like America's losing, and the Japanese take us, like the Chinese and the Japanese, they just, take us for a ride, and they're killing us on deals, and they're so much better than us, when it comes to negotiating. I mean, do you feel any like, oh, that's my that's my ethnic heritage he's talking about. I mean, do you feel offended, or how do you feel when you hear him talking like that?
Well, it comes across as a lot of rhetoric, and I'm not sure that's how he personally feels, but I think he needs to fine tune some of his talking points.
Fine tune. That's a nice way to put it. Okay, fine tune. I'm sure if Donald was here right now, and you told him, let's fine tune your talking points, what would he say? But
He's
Michelle,
an
and you
entertainer. Bottom line is, so he gets. I mean,
entertainer in chief, or
he gets all the attention that the way he kind of like talks straight. Only thing is when he becomes president, I know it's not his own decision, but it's a whole administration is going to put it together. So I think he's going to be changed. Actually, he's been changed a lot. I met him 3 times. When I saw him in March, he didn't have enough patience, and taking pictures, he was very frustrated. Of course, when you try to come into the convention center, that was the toughest, begin with. And then when I saw him at the RNC spring meeting, he was a little better. But last weekend, actually, I was at his Beverly Hills house. And you know what? Every time I see him, I see his genuineness that I've never really seen him through the media. So you know what? He has something different. And then you can look at his kids. I mean, children are very good. I mean, good boys and girls. They've been raised very nicely. And all of people there who worked with him never really saying bad things about him means that he has something. Maybe I'm hoping, but you know what? He has something there. At this point, as a Republican, we don't have any choice but support him. So we are doing it. But at the same time, I try to find something really good about him. And then I'm looking for, and I've been finding it.
Okay, I think he'd be well served to consult with each of you. Let me ask you, Lisa, do you consider yourself a role model?
I do. And I started this when I was in the private sector. I was a young corporate executive starting out, and I got to the director level position in a high-tech firm. And in the 80s, you didn't have very many women in management. And I went in and talked to the president one day, and I said, I'm really doing the work of a vice president, but I'm still a director level. And he said, well, this is a high-tech firm. Most of our executives are men, and they've all got advanced degrees. So I went back and got my master's degree, presented my diploma to the president, and he made me a vice president. And I thought, well, now I'm on easy street. And I didn't realize I still had a long ways to go. I walked into the boardroom for my very first meeting as a vice president. I had all men around the table from one of our distributors, and I was there to negotiate the distributor agreement. And I walk in the room, and before I could even introduce myself, they start giving me their coffee orders, thinking, I'm a woman, young woman. I must be there to give get their coffee orders for them. So I had to explain that I was there to negotiate the contract. And they sort of looked at me like, but you're a woman. That's really odd. And it was at a time where you just didn't have a lot of women in management. And so from that time forward, I decided I was going to be a role model for all the young, promising women that I saw in my office. And there was one particular person, Cindy Johnson, and she was my legal secretary. And I said, Cindy, you are so smart. You don't need to be a legal secretary your whole life. You could be a legal administrator and negotiate contracts and just do exactly what I've done. And she said, oh, no, I've always been a legal secretary. And I said, I'm going to train you. And it took me 3.5 years. And she became a legal administrator. And then she got a job in a great law firm. She left and she went to work for W. Al Gore eventually and got into senior management there and actually got into the research and development area long term. But she used to send me thank you notes every year. Thank you for being a role model, because if I hadn't really taken her under my wing and shown her what to do to go from point A to point B, she'd still be a legal secretary. So I think it's really important to be a good role model for the community at large, because there's so much information and knowledge that we can impart and help those that are young and promising and help them move up. We have to have that succession planning, I think, and that's something I really enjoy being a part of.
Well, Michelle, are you a role model?
I don't know, but when I go speak in front of those kids and children or students, I always tell them that I came this far. I think you can do better. And they're always watching me. And there's a lot of kids actually calling me and sending me emails, and we try to communicate and tell them that, you can be much better. Actually, you can do much better than I did so far. So, that's the only message that I give to the young person.
And I think on both of your upbeat messages, that's a good place to end it. Thanks for sticking around for the open
Pleasure.
mic, and thank you for your time. It's been great. It's been great.
Good to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.